What's up everybody, I am Jaspreet Singh, and unlike what the majority of people say, it is possible to get out of your financial situation. It is possible to get out of poverty even if you've never seen anything else, but it requires the right financial education and you have to go through the right steps to get into a better financial situation. You don't know what you don't know, and if you grew up seeing your parents struggle with money, if you grew up seeing your parents go paycheck to paycheck, if you grew up never learning about money or investing or how to become wealthy, chances are you never learned to think about it because no one taught you how to be good with your money. And if now you're in a situation where you're trying to figure out, how can I become wealthy? How can I achieve some sort of financial success? How can I get out of the financial situation that I'm in right now? It is possible. Even if you've never seen it before, even if you think that somebody like you, somebody who looks like you, somebody from your situation, somebody with your parents, somebody with your background can never do it, the reality is it is possible after you believe it's possible. Now, if you're watching this video, chances are you believe that something is possible for you, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. But then the next step is, what do you do? And I broke it down into 5 steps of the things that you need to do right now to get out of your financial situation. That way you can build real wealth for yourself, because it is possible, and by the end of this video you'll know the steps that you need to do in order to do that. The first thing that you got to do is MM, and no, I'm not talking about the minority mindset, although you do have to have the right mindset before you can do anything. But this MM I'm referring to is monitoring your money, because what happens to the majority of people is you make money, so you have an income, then you pay your taxes, you spend, and then you wonder where all your money went. This is what the financial statement looks like for the vast majority of people, but you have to break this if you want any chance at becoming wealthy. So the first thing that I want you to do is pull out a piece of paper, use an Excel sheet, use Google Sheets, doesn't matter what you use, but you need to understand where your money is going. So at the very top, write down how much money you're making every month. Just look at your last month's statement, write down how much money you made, and then I want you to write where every penny went. So write all of your expenses. How much is your rent? How much was your mortgage? How much were your property taxes? How much was your car payment if you had one? How much did you spend on gas? How much did you spend on groceries? How much did you spend on flights? How much money did you give away? How much did you buy on other random stuff, restaurants? You write all this down, and then you should see where all your money went. Write down how much money you invested, if any. Write down how much money you put towards savings, if any. And then you'll see where all your money went. And now we can work towards actually changing the way that your money works. Because the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to realize, oh my God, I spent so much money on subscriptions that I don't even use. I spent so much money on this thing that I don't even use. Now you can immediately cut those things out, because if you're spending money on something that you're not using, get rid of it. Because right now in this first stage, you have to create margin. Meaning you need a difference. You need a spread between how much money you're making and how much money you're spending. If you are spending every dollar that you bring in, it is going to be impossible for you to build any sort of wealth, because anytime you make money, you're spending this money, meaning you're working to make everybody else around you rich. Anytime you get paid, you're making your landlord richer, you're making the banker richer, you're making a car company richer, you're making Gucci richer, you're making Lululemon richer, you're making these other companies richer. However, you have no money left to make yourself richer, which means the very first thing that you got to do is cut out the unnecessary expenses. Second, once you cut out the unnecessary expenses, that's when you start downsizing on the necessary expenses. Yes, you need a car, but do you really need that BMW that you have right now? You can start downsizing on the expenses that you have right now, and there's a 2-part plan to do that. First is selling the things that you don't need. If you have a fancy car, if you have a big home, if you have things that you don't need or can't afford right now, start selling them, because you need this cash in order to be able to actually build this wealth. So just look around you. Look around you in your apartment, in your home, see what things are just collecting dust that you're not using, that are just sitting there taking up space. Put it on Facebook Marketplace, put it on Craigslist, put it on eBay, put it on Amazon, sell it. Get the cash, turn that dust into cash, and now you no longer have this item that you don't need, but you have some cash. Now look at your car. If you are financing a car that you cannot afford, you got to get rid of it. Financing a car means that you're paying interest on something that's losing value. If you buy a car for $20,000, well, guess what? The brand new car for 20 grand is going to be worth 16 grand as soon as you drive it off the lot, and then you're going to be paying interest each and every year that the car is losing value. So if you have a car payment that you're financing, well, you might want to consider selling that car and then buying a car that you can afford with cash in good working condition that doesn't need a lot of maintenance. The reason why this is so important is because if you could take $500 a month and instead of using this money to make somebody else richer, instead of making your car company richer, you invested this money. And you invested this money, let's just say in the stock market. And you could do a general 7% average return on your money. So we're not talking about a great return, we're talking about a below average return on your money. And you do this for 45 years. I know, that's a long time, but if you do this consistently, you take this $500, you don't pay the car company, you're not paying a banker, you're putting this money to work for yourself. Well, guess what? By the time you retire, you're gonna have almost $2 million sitting there. If you spend this $500 a month on your car instead, guess what? By the time you retire, you're gonna have a piece of junk that still needs maintenance, that needs more work, and you're just gonna be flipping car after car after car, versus now, if you sacrifice the car, you drive a beat up car that drives in good working condition, well, guess what? Now you take this payment, the monthly payment that you're paying to the car company, put it to work for yourself. That way you can build real wealth for yourself. So the first thing you want to do now, you want to monitor your money, sell off things that you don't need, and then start downsizing. Hey, if you have a big apartment, you have a big home, this could be an opportunity for you to move a little bit smaller. And I know this can be hard to do when you're in this weird economic time that we're in right now. However, this is where you really want to consider what sacrifices that you're willing to make, because the sacrifice that you're willing to make today can help you live a more comfortable life tomorrow, right? The whole idea is right now you want to live uncomfortable so you can be more comfortable tomorrow. It's that sacrifice for that delayed gratification for a bigger and freer lifestyle in the future. The kind of funny and ironic thing is the people that are going out of their way to buy nice things like name brand cars, name brand clothes, the Gucci, the Louis Vuitton. These aren't the wealthy millionaires and billionaires that are going out of their way to buy these name brand things. It's the people that want to look rich. It's the people that don't have any money, that are not going out of their way, that are struggling, that are going thin, that are going into debt, that are financing the name brand cars, the name brand clothes. That way they can look rich, but these things that make you look rich are the things that are actually keeping you broke. When you're successful, you don't really care about the name brand because you know you're successful. You already have the confidence. You already know you made it. You don't have to go out and buy a name brand thing just to show off that you made it. If you want something nice in name brand, you can buy it, but you're buying it because you like it, not because you want to show off. Because when you're a millionaire, when you become successful, when you become wealthy, you want to live quieter. You don't want to attract that attention. The people that are doing it are the people that want to act and look like they made it. After you do MM, it's time for II, which in this case is increasing your income. And this is more important to do this after you cut your expenses, because what happens to the majority of people is if you ask the majority of people right now, what is causing you your financial problems? Every single person will say it's the amount of money that I'm making. I'm not making enough money. If I just made more money, then all my financial problems would get better. But if that was really the case, why is it that so many lottery winners end up broke or bankrupt within just the first 5 years of winning the lottery? Why do so many high-income NFL players end up broke or bankrupt after just 5 years? Why do so many NBA players end up broke or bankrupt after just a few years? Why do so many trust fund kids lose all their money after getting this big sum of cash? It's because if you make more money without knowing how to use that money, the majority of people will end up losing that money. This is why you have to understand how to use your money before earning more money has more value. So we talked about how to use your money in the first thing. Now we're talking about how to earn more money, because now if you earn more money, you're going to understand what you want to do with that money. And the whole goal here, going back to what I said earlier, is building that margin. You want to have that margin between how much money you make and how much money you spend. That way you have the extra cash to put to work to make you wealthy, because wealthy people become wealthy and stay wealthy not by spending all their money, not by saving all their money, but by investing their money. They buy assets, they buy investments, they buy businesses, they buy stocks, they buy real estate, they buy cryptocurrency, they buy gold, they buy assets and investments which help them keep their wealth and help them grow their wealth, because they invest in these things for the long term. Now, while that part is pretty simple to understand, the second thing you got to understand is, how do you actually buy it? Well, you can't buy it unless you have cash that requires you to have this margin between how much money you make and how much money you spend. Well, if you're now cutting down your expenses, the next thing you can do is increase your income. Because so many people, they get this wrong. They say, all right, your income is this pie right here. And right now, here's what your financial statement looks like. You're earning this money. You're making, let's just say $40,000 a year. I'm going to get my other marker. You're earning $40,000 a year. And right now you're putting aside 25%, meaning you're putting aside $10,000 into your savings and your investments, which is great. And once you start doing that, you're going to realize, holy moly, I love this whole idea of investing. I love this idea of financial freedom. I love this idea of financial education. And now you're like, I want to do even more. I want to get more aggressive. I want to put more money aside. So what do? Well, now you're going to work to put even more money aside to your savings and investments. You're pinching more pennies. You're trying to squeeze more dollars out of this pie that we have more money to put to work. And this can be great if you know what to do with this money. However, I want you to think a little bit bigger. This is now building that growth mindset. This is what wealthy people have, where you don't see the world with this limited pie. Instead, what you're saying is, okay, yeah, I'm putting aside 25%. And maybe I can put aside a little bit more if that aligns with your lifestyle. But also what I'm thinking is, how do I grow the pie from $40,000 a year to $400,000 a year? Because now if you can grow the pie to $400,000 a year and you do the same thing, you're putting aside 25%, well, guess what? You're not putting aside $10,000 anymore. You're putting aside $100,000 a year. That's a whole lot more than $10,000, but it's the same percentage, the same proportion based off of your income. Now, I already know those of you watching this are saying, but Jaspreet, how in the world am I going to go from $40,000 a year to $400,000 a year? That's a pretty big jump. And you're right. But this requires back to what I said in the beginning. You first have to have the right mindset. You have to believe it's possible, because if you believe it's possible, your mind is then going to dictate your actions. Because if you believe that you can make $400,000 a year, then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start watching YouTube videos. How do I increase my income? What can I do to start a side hustle? How can I start a business? And then you're going to start reading books. And then you're going to start trying different things. And then you might actually fail and try again. Maybe buy some classes. Maybe invest in more of your education. That way now you can start earning more money, because until you believe it, you're not going to do anything, because your mind dictates your actions. And so now first thing that you got to do is understand, hey, if I can increase the size of the pie, I don't even have to change the percentage of the money that I'm putting aside. I can just grow the pie, build that growth mindset, and now my percentage that I'm putting aside becomes so much more valuable, because there's a lot more dollars that I can put to work for me. Because now you have $100,000 that you're putting to work to invest to your savings to help build you wealth. Now the question you're asking is, how do I make this additional income right now? And this is now going to depend on you. If you don't like the idea of starting a side hustle, if you don't like the idea of starting a business, you hate that idea, then work at your job. How can you get a promotion? How can you get a raise? How can you work your way up at your company? There's nothing wrong with working a job. The majority of people should not be in the business of trying to start a company or operate a company. Now, if you like your job and you want to see how you can work up it, that's fine. But if you don't like your position, if you're not happy with the income that you're getting, if you don't see any growth potential, then maybe you look for a certificate on how you can get a different position. Or maybe you look for a different company. Or maybe you look for some other sort of career that can help you actually earn more money. Again, you might feel scared. It might feel weird because, well, I'm already secure and safe here. Well, when you're secure and you're safe, you have no growth. That's why when you invest your money, you see no return unless you take risk. And generally, the more risk can also bring on the bigger returns. And so same thing here with your income. If you're comfortable, if you're safe, if you're calm, nothing's wrong, well, yeah, you got a comfortable salary. But if you really want to get something bigger, you got to be willing to take on more risk. If, on the other hand, you have a business idea, or you like the idea of being an entrepreneur, or you want to create something on your own, or you want to be your own boss, then you can consider starting your own side hustle. You can consider starting your own business, and you can do this while you're working a job full time. And I know this is more work. It's harder because you're going to work all day. You got to manage the family. You got to take care of your spouse. You got to do all these other things. But this is where now you got to figure out what's most important to you, because when somebody really wants something, you'll always find a way. When somebody wants something, they will find a way. And this is where now you got to figure out what's most important to you, because now if you want to start a side hustle, hey, it's so much easier now thanks to the internet. You can watch YouTube videos, you can read books, you can take classes. There are so many things that you can do to learn and to get started. And it doesn't take a whole lot of cash either. This is where a lot of people make a mistake, and please don't be one of those people that makes this mistake, that where you assume that if you want to start a business, you want to start a side hustle, you need thousands and thousands of dollars, or you need tens of thousands of dollars. You really don't need that anymore. You can start a lot of different business ideas for less than $1,000, for less than $500. All you need is the right mindset and the hustle. And when you have these two things, the willingness to learn, the right mindset and the hustle, nothing can stop you. I started all this, the Minority Mindset brand, the Minority Mindset companies, the Minority Mindset channel, with less than $500. It was less than $100. I started making videos off my phone with a tripod that I bought off of Amazon for like $35. I don't have any fancy lights. I don't have a fancy camera. I don't have any fancy audio equipment. It was a basic cell phone on a tripod with no lights in front of a white wall. That was it. Slowly we started to grow. Then I started to reinvest back into the company as we started to make more money. Then I helped build our blog. Then I helped fund our Market Briefs company. Then I helped build the Market Insiders app. We started investing in more things, but I didn't do any of that until I started making more money from this brand because I started Minority Mindset as a hobby. I was working on other things that were actually making money, but I didn't want to throw money here because I was busy doing other things. This is where you have to be willing to understand that it is possible and that you don't need all these resources and all these things to get started. Just get started. Once you start to grow, once you start making some money, that's when you can start reinvesting back into yourself, back into your company, back into your side hustle, and then you can just grow sustainably that way. Third, you got to get to work. And I'm not just talking about you physically here. Of course, you got to work hard. You got to be willing to work hard to continue to save on your expenses. You got to continue to work hard to increase your income. You got to continue to work hard to do all these things. But I'm also talking about here putting your money to work. Because now as you create this margin that I've been talking about this whole video, where now you're earning more money that you're spending, you want to do something with this extra cash. You want to put some cash aside for your savings. You want to have somewhere between 3 to 6 months to 12 months worth of expenses put aside in a savings account that you don't touch unless you run into an emergency. And by emergency, I mean your kid breaks their arm, your car breaks down, your AC stops working, an actual emergency, not that Best Buy is having a sale, but a real emergency. So you put this cash aside, and the amount of cash you put aside is going to depend on your risk tolerance. If you don't really have any financial responsibilities, if you don't mind taking on more risks, then maybe you only have a few months of cash put aside in your emergency account. But if you have more financial responsibilities, you don't like taking on a lot of risk, then you should put aside more cash for your emergencies. Once you start doing that, then you also want to think about now, how do you actually put your money to work to make you more money? This is what I've been hinting at this whole video. This is what wealthy people do. They use their cash, their extra money, to buy investments, to buy assets that make them money. Now, there's two different ways that you can go about doing this. One way is to pay down some of your debt. The other way is to actually go out and buy assets. If you have anything that's a high interest debt, something like credit card debt, something like a payday loan, something like a hard money lender, something like a buy now, pay later thing that you purchased but didn't pay off in time, so now you're paying 18 to 25% APR on this loan. If you have any type of high interest debt, before you think about investing your money anywhere else, you got to pay this down as fast as possible, because these debts are skinning you alive financially. Here's why this is so important. If you have $6,000 right now and you put this into an investment account that's paying you, say, 20% a year, and you do this for 45 years, well, at the end of the 45 years, your $6,000 investment, assuming you've never put another penny into this investment, you just put $6,000 into here, you let it grow by 20% a year for 45 years, your $6,000 is gonna grow to over $21 million. Now you might think, Jaspreet, that's great and all, but where am I supposed to get a 20% return on my money? And that's the reality. Credit card company is charging you 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25% a year in interest. And so if your credit card company is earning this money from you, that means your credit card company is getting rich from you because you have this high interest rate debt. So this is where you want to be the one not making your credit card company rich, not making all these companies rich. You want to pay down this high interest debt as fast as possible. So you take the margin that I was just talking about, this extra cash, you use it to pay down this debt as fast as possible, because this money is making your banker rich, is making your credit card company rich, and you want to put this money to work to make you rich, but you shouldn't do that until you pay down all these high interest debts. Now, if you have lower interest rate debts, things like a car payment, things like a mortgage, now you have a little bit more flexibility on whether you want to invest this money into something like the stock market or use this cash to pay down the debt. And the questions that you want to ask yourself are, what is your risk tolerance? What are your goals? And what type of lifestyle that you want to live? Because if you say, I want to live a big lifestyle and I don't mind taking on a lot of risk and I want to do something really big, I want to have a lot of wealth, then you want to be taking on more risk. And more risk in this instance would be taking your cash, putting it to work in something like the stock market. And it's riskier because the stock market can go down. The goal is to see your investment go up faster than how much money you're paying on your mortgage. However, there's a chance that your stock market investment can go down. But you're taking that risk because you want the upside. You're willing to take that risk for the potential to see that growth in your money in the next number of years. However, if you say, I just want to live financially free, I just want to never have to worry about money again, I want to just be able to live my life and not have to worry about my payments, then you want to consider paying down your debts as fast as possible, because now if you can pay out your home, if you can pay out your car and never have to worry about another payment again, well, now you're financially free. And you don't got to worry about that. And then you can worry about taking your extra cash and putting it to work for your investments. Now, I think every single person needs to have their own investments because you want to create an income stream. You want to have multiple streams of income. You want to have assets that pay you. But when you're initially starting to put your money to work, you want to know where the bulk of your cash should go. And this is where you have to make the decision of paying down your debt versus investing your money. And they both can have a place, but you got to understand these questions and know what type of lifestyle, what type of risk you want to take, and what type of goals you have financially, because that's going to help dictate where you put your money, whether it's investing your money or paying down your debt. If you're wondering where you can learn how to invest your money into assets, which are investments, things like stocks and real estate and cryptocurrency, you can check out Market Insiders. It's an investing education app that I created where every week you get access to live coaching sessions on stock market investing, real estate investing, and cryptocurrency investing. So if you want to try out Market Insiders for free, you have access to a free 10-day trial where you can get all the previous coaching sessions and attend the live coaching sessions. That way you can try everything out and not have to pay a penny until you realize if you love it or if you don't love it. If you don't love it, then you don't have to continue. It doesn't cost you a penny. If you love it, well, then you can continue. So if you want to try out Market Insiders for free, I'll put the link to how you can do it down in the description below. Fourth, you have to constantly be willing to learn. If you remember the 3 things that I talked about where nothing can stop you from becoming successful, you have to have the right mindset, you have to have the right education, and you have to have the right work ethic. Well, I already talked about the work ethic. I already talked about the mindset. This is the first thing that I talked about. But now let's talk about the actual education, because education is the backbone for your success. But the question is, where do you get that education? Because the majority of us assume that our education ends at school. I went to school, I got a degree, and I got my education. However, if you really want to become successful, your real education just begins with school. And this is where now you have to have the real self education, the life education, the financial education, which can take you to real wealth. And that means, 1, you can start watching YouTube videos. I have a ton of videos on my channel, which is why if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that. But then you can start learning from other places. You can start reading books. You can start reading blogs. Maybe you start purchasing classes. Maybe you hire a consultant or a coach, depending on where you are and what it is that you're working on. Now you can start actually learning more about the things that you want to do, and you have to be willing to learn. And the best education that you can get is through experience. It's called that real life education, that tuition. I had to go through so many failures in entrepreneurship in order to learn how to build a business. I went from failure to failure to failure until I could figure out how to actually build a business. Same thing with my investments. I made a video on this YouTube channel where I went through my worst real estate deal ever. I walked you through everything that happened. It was a horrible nightmare property where everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. I lost a ton of money on that deal. It's the only deal to date that I've ever lost money on, but that was my real life tuition. It sucked when it happened. I didn't enjoy it when it happened, but now looking back, I learned so many things. And that one real estate deal that had taught me years of real estate investing in just one deal, and that set me up to be able to do much bigger deals, much more profitable deals later on, because I learned how to make the mistakes quickly. It's kind of funny because I think a lot of people that go through this educational process realize this, and what you see is the people that talk the loudest, that feel like they know everything, are typically the people that know the least. And as you start to learn more, that's when you realize that you really don't know anything. So the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, when in reality, you're becoming smarter, you're becoming more educated, but you just feel like you don't know anything because you've now started to invest in your own education and you realize how uneducated you actually are. This is why you need to be investing in your own education. And if you're not, start listening to audiobooks or read books. I don't like reading. English is my second language. I'm not a very good reader. I'm a very slow reader. It's hard for me to sit down and actually read. But once I discovered audiobooks, I loved it. I discovered this during the pandemic where when gyms were closed, I started going on walks. And I started going on these really long walks where I needed something to do. I didn't really like listening to music. I wanted to do something more productive. And this is where I found out about Audible. They're not a sponsor. I just listened to Audible books and I started listening to audiobooks there. And now I'm listening to audiobooks almost every single day on my morning walks. And so this is another way for you to start learning, to start listening to audiobooks or read books, because you can tap into the minds of some of the most successful people and see what they did. Because if you live in this bubble where you don't have successful people around you, you don't know investors around you, you don't know entrepreneurs, well, what you can do is start tapping into the minds of other successful people by reading their books. That's how I got started, because no one in my family is an investor. I didn't know any real estate investors. I wasn't exposed to financial education. I didn't know what the word entrepreneurship was, but I started reading books, and that started teaching me about things that I had never even heard of. I never knew what investing was. I didn't realize what passive income was until I started reading books about it. And that changed my mindset about things, which changed the way that I acted. You have to change your mindset, which changes your thoughts, which will then change your actions. And number 5, you just got to keep repeating the process, because the mistake then that a lot of people make is they assume that they can change everything in just 1 year, that you can go from zero to millionaire in 1 year because you saw this YouTube video of somebody talking about how you can follow the 6-step system to go from 0 to 7 figures a year in just 12 months. Now, the reality is get rich quick does not work for 99.9% of people. Maybe you hit the lottery, maybe you find some random way to make money very quickly, but that is the outlier, it is the exception, it is not the rule. And so what you have to understand now is if you really want to build true, sustainable wealth, it takes time. And a lot of times we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And this requires you to now really build that disciplined mindset, build that long-term mindset, because you'll surprise yourself. If you start noting and journaling how far you've come, if you look back in 3 months, you'll be surprised at how much you change your financial situation in your life. You look back in 12 months, you'll be even more surprised. And then if you look back in 5 years, it's going to be a complete night and day difference where you won't even remember how your life was before, how you lived your life where you didn't understand how to use money. And when you do that, you're going to feel so much more fulfilled because you're going to see how far you have come. But this requires you to stay disciplined and understand that we're running a marathon here. It's not just a sprint. You're doing this for the long haul. That way you can build real wealth for yourself, for your family, and for your community. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see the 4.5 ways that you can build generational wealth that are easier than you think, I made a video going over that, and you can watch that video by clicking this button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling. You have to go through the pain of pulling money out of the economy. That way you can solve the inflation problem and then let the economy